Stewpot Stewart was one of the first presenters on Radio 1 when it launched in 1967. Radio 1 DJ and Crackerjack presenter Stewpot Stewart has died aged 74, a few days after having a stroke. Ed was one of the first presenters on Radio 1 when it launched in 1967 and was the face of Friday TV favorite Crackerjack in the 1970s. Crackerjack was so popular that Devon-born Ed said in 2014 he still couldn't go into a pub without a puncher shouting, "It's Friday, it's 5 to 5. It's Crackerjack." He leaves behind 2 children and 5 grandchildren. Rocky Taylor, a friend of 40 years standing, said he died in hospital in Bournemouth. Mr. Taylor said he had been told of his death by Ed's ex-wife Cara Mannering. Ed, who became one of the best-known names in radio and TV, said he stumbled into the industry by sheer accident as he always wanted to be a musician. Speaking to The Express in one of his last interviews, he said, "I was 20 when a friend who was doing his national service in Hong Kong invited me over because he'd found a piano player for our musical trio to play a gig there. I arrived in Hong Kong only to discover they'd both been posted to Aden at short notice and the show was cancelled. I decided to stay and apply to Radio Hong Kong, who employed me as an announcer, film critic and rugby reporter." Returning to England 5 years later, the pirate ships were the only stations playing pop music, so I joined Radio London, which was based 4 miles offshore, and I stayed with them for 2 years. My first show at Radio 1 was Happening Sunday, and the program controller's wife heard me reading requests, so she suggested I replace Paddy Feeney, who was stepping down from Junior Choice. It was another world. And went on to host Top of the Pops and Crackerjack. He then returned to Radio 2 and was a presenter for 15 years. He was also a long-standing presenter of children's show Junior Choice, which last broadcast on BBC Radio 2 over Christmas. Tributes flooded into the TV legend. Twitter user Vern wrote, "Another slice of childhood gone." Listening to the radio under the covers. Listening to Stewpot. Filmed with him decades later. RIP. Bob Shinnon, controller of Radio 2, said, "Everyone at Radio 2 is extremely saddened to hear of the passing of Ed Stewpot Stewart. Ed has been a stalwart of popular music broadcasting for many years, and over the past few Christmases he brought back Junior Choice to the delight of millions of loyal listeners. We are thinking of Ed's friends and family at this difficult time." Another added, "R.I.P. Ed Stewpot Stewart, the voice of Christmas radio. Enjoyed the show only a few weeks ago." He divorced his wife in 2004 after 29 years of marriage and leaves a son and a daughter.